The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with voices from 1,000 worlds. Alien beings of every shape and size filled the crystal seats, their strange languages mixing into a low hum that echoed off the glowing walls. The Galactic Council, the most powerful beings in known space. Today, they were talking about Earth. Admiral Quan stood at the back of the hall, his dark eyes watching the scene unfold. He was the only human in the room, and he felt it. Every few minutes, an alien would turn to look at him, their faces showing everything from pity to disgust. He kept his face blank, but inside, anger burned like a hot coal. The Terra question has gone on too long, announced the council speaker, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. 300 years of silence. 300 years of nothing. Laughter rippled through the hall. The sound made Quan's jaw tighten. Perhaps they have died out, suggested the hegemony ambassador, a creature that looked like a walking tree with glowing sap for blood. Their last message was about nuclear weapons. Very primitive, very dangerous to themselves. More laughter.
Quan remembered that last message.
It had been a simple radio signal, sent out into space by Earth's early space program.
The aliens had
found it amusing then, too. A species that had just learned to split atoms, trying to talk to the stars. I have studied their history, said another council member, this one with tentacles instead of arms. They are violent creatures, always fighting each other. Perhaps they destroyed themselves. Good riddance, muttered someone from the crowd. Quan's hands slowly formed fists at his sides. He wanted to speak, to defend his people, but he knew better. He was here as an observer only. It's the last human diplomat in the galaxy. It's the last voice Earth had among the stars. And nobody listened to him anymore. The council speaker raised one of his 4 hands. The question before us is simple. Do we investigate this silence, or do we assume the Terra problem has solved itself? What problem? Asked a new voice. This came from the Dominion section, where the most warlike species sat. They were never a threat. Their ships barely left their own star system. Their weapons were simple explosives. They were like children, playing with fire. Dangerous children, added the hegemony ambassador. Remember their early transmissions? All their entertainment was about war. All their history was about killing each other. They were too violent to join civilized space. The speaker nodded. This is why we placed them under observation, to see if they would grow beyond their violent nature. And they have grown silent instead, said the tentacled being. Silent as the grave, perhaps. Quan remembered the day the decision was made. He had been younger then, Earth's first ambassador to the stars. Full of hope and dreams of friendship between species. He had watched as the Council voted to isolate Earth, to cut them off from galactic trade and technology. For humanity's own good, they said, till humans learn to be more peaceful. The isolation was supposed to last 50 years. It had lasted 300. I propose we send a peacekeeping fleet, said the Dominion representative. A small force. Just to check on them. If they are still alive, we can offer them guidance. If they are dead, we can claim their star system for more civilized use. An excellent idea, the speaker agreed. All in favor? Hands, claws, tentacles, and stranger things rose throughout the hall. Quan counted them. Every single member of the council voted yes. Not one spoke for humanity. Not one suggested that maybe, just maybe, Earth's silence meant something else. The vote was done in minutes. Earth would be investigated. Its solar system would be claimed if humanity was gone. Its people would be guided if they still lived. Guided. The word made Quan sick. He knew what that meant. Earth would become a client world, its people working. In alien mines and factories, their children would be taught that humans were too primitive to rule themselves. Their culture would be slowly erased, replaced with something the galaxy found more acceptable. The meeting ended with the same laughter that had started it. Council members filed out, chatting about trade deals and border disputes. To them, the Terra question was solved. A minor problem dealt with efficiently. Quan remained in his seat until the hall was empty. Then he stood slowly, his old bones creaking. At 75, he was ancient by human standards, but still young compared to most council members. Some of them had been alive when humans first discovered fire. He walked through the empty hall, his footsteps echoing off the crystal walls. In a few hours, he would send a message to Earth, a simple transmission, encoded in ways the aliens wouldn't understand, a warning that they were coming. But Earth probably already knew. Earth had been quiet for 3 centuries, but Quan doubted they had been sleeping. Humans didn't sleep when they were threatened. They planned. He thought about Dr. Hurin, the brilliant scientist who had been just a child when the isolation began. She would be old now, but her mind would still be sharp. She had been working on something when he left Earth. Something, she said, would change everything. He thought about Captain Jinha, the young pilot who had sworn to see the stars someday. He would be middle-aged now if he was still alive. Probably. Teaching the next generation of human pilots, filling their heads with dreams of space travel, dreams that had been crushed by alien. Laughter, Quan reached his small apartment in the diplomatic section. It was barely large enough for a human, designed for smaller species. Everything in the galaxy was designed for smaller species. Humans were considered giants. As clumsy and oversized as their violent nature, he sat at his desk and began to write his message. Simple words that would tell Earth what was coming. But even as he wrote, he found himself smiling. The galaxy thought Earth was silent because it was weak. They thought humanity had given up, died out, or simply stopped trying. They measured Earth's silence against their own chattering nature and found it wanting, but Quan knew better. He had grown up human. He understood what silence meant when it came from his people. Humans went quiet when they were thinking. They went quiet when they were planning. They went quiet when they were preparing for war. Earth's silence wasn't the quiet of death. It was the quiet of a predator, waiting in the dark for the right moment to strike. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's silence for 300 years. Soon they would learn what that silence had been hiding. Quan finished his message and sent it toward the small, quiet star system that had once been home. Then he leaned back in his chair and waited. The peacekeeping fleet would arrive in 3 months. By then, the galaxy would discover that Earth's silence hadn't been surrendered. It had been preparation, and humanity was ready. Captain Jinha floated in the darkness between the stars, his ship invisible against the black of space. The defiant dawn hung silent and still, its hull painted with materials that bent light around it like water. To any alien sensors, this patch of space was empty, but Jinha was watching everything, through his ship's cameras. He studied the massive military base floating in the distance. It was called Fortress Beta, and it was supposed to be one of the strongest defenses in the galaxy. Jinha had been watching it for 3 weeks, and he was not impressed. Another patrol coming in, said his second in command, a young woman named Li. Same pattern as yesterday. Jinha nodded. The aliens were predictable. They followed the same routes, used the same schedules, made the same mistakes. Their technology was advanced, but their thinking was old and slow. Mark their weapon positions, Jinha ordered. Count the ships in dock. Li's fingers danced over her controls. 200 fighters, 50 cruisers, 10 battleships. All following standard hegemony designs. Standard designs. That was the problem with the galaxy's military. They'd been using the same ship designs for thousands of years. Same weapons, the same tactics, the same strategies. They were powerful. They never changed. Humans changed all the time. Jinha remembered his grandfather's stories about the old wars on Earth, how human armies would study their enemies, learn their weaknesses, then strike where they were not. Expected, the galaxy had forgotten how to do that. They'd grown comfortable with their power. Captain Li whispered, incoming transmission from home. Jinha pressed a button on his chair. The message was short and coded, but he understood it perfectly. Admiral Quan's warning had reached Earth. The peacekeeping fleet was coming. It was time to go home. Set course for the Sol system, Jinha ordered. Maximum stealth speed. The Defiant. Dawn began to move, its special engines making no sound and leaving no trace. Behind them, Fortress Beta continued its lazy patrol, never knowing that human eyes had studied every weakness, every blind spot. every mistake. Jinha had been doing this for 2 years now. His ship was one of 50 that had been mapping the galaxy's defenses. While the aliens laughed at Earth's silence, human scouts had been everywhere. Watching and learning, the journey home took 6 days. Jinha spent the time writing his report, documenting everything he had seen. The galaxy's military was strong, but it was also predictable. Their ships were fast, but they followed shipping lanes that could be blocked. Their weapons were powerful, but they had not been updated in centuries. Most importantly, they were overconfident. They believed their own myths about being the greatest civilization in the galaxy. They had forgotten that being the strongest was not the same as being the smartest. When the defiant dawn reached the edge of the Sol system, Jinha was amazed by what he saw. The space around Jupiter was full of construction yards, each one the size of a city. Massive ships were being built, their hulls gleaming with new armor and strange weapons. But these were not the bulky, slow ships the galaxy expected humans to build. These were sleek predators, designed for speed and stealth. They looked like sharks swimming through space. "Welcome home, Captain," came a voice over the radio. It was Admiral Quan, now commander of Earth's Space Forces. "Report to Station Alpha immediately." Station Alpha was a giant space station orbiting Jupiter's largest moon. It was the heart of humanity's military effort, and it was bigger than most alien cities. Jinha docked his ship and made his way to the command center. The command center was a vast room filled with screens and computers. Hundreds of people worked at their stations, tracking ships, planning missions, and coordinating the greatest military buildup in human history. The center of it all stood Admiral Quan, older now, but still strong. Quan said, shaking his hand, "Good to have you back. How did the recon mission go?" "Too easy," Jinha replied. "Their defenses are strong, but they're not smart. They do the same thing every day. Each child could predict their movements." Quan nodded grimly. "That's what all our scouts are reporting. 3 centuries of peace have made them lazy." "What about our preparations?" Jinha asked. Quan gestured to the screens around them. "See for yourself. 200 ships completed, with more launching every day. Dr. Hurin has finished her new engine design. Can now travel faster than anything in the galaxy." Followed Quan to another part of the command center. Here, a brilliant woman in her 50s was working over a complex diagram. This was Dr. Hurin, the scientist who had spent her life studying alien technology. "Captain Jinha," she said, looking up from her work. "Perfect timing." "I was just finishing the final tests on our new weapon system." She led them to a viewing window that looked out into space. In the distance, a small asteroid was floating. Alone, Dr. Hurin pressed a button, and a beam of pure energy shot out from the station. The asteroid simply vanished, turned into dust in an instant. "Quantum disruptors," Hurin explained. "They don't just destroy matter, they erase it from existence. The aliens have nothing like this." Jinha whistled softly. "How many ships have these weapons?" "All of them," Hurin said with a smile. "Plus something even better. Watch this." She pressed another button, and one of the new human warships began to fade from view. It became transparent, then invisible, then reappeared again. "Phase shifting," Hurin explained. "The ship moves partially out of normal space. Can't be seen, can't be hit, but it can still fire on targets. We took their cloaking technology and made it 100 times better." Quan's communication device beeped. He listened to the message, then looked at Jinha and Hurin with a serious expression. "The peacekeeping fleet has left Nexus Prime," he said. 3,000 ships, representing 12 different species. They'll be here in 2 months. 3,000? Jinha asked. "That's almost their entire military. They're not taking any." "Chances," Quan replied. "I think we might have some primitive weapons. They want to overwhelm us with numbers." Hurin laughed. "They still don't understand. We're not the same species that sent those radio signals 3 centuries ago. We've evolved." She gestured to the screens showing Earth's new fleet. Every ship out there represents something they've never seen before. New weapons, new tactics, new ways of thinking. While they were laughing at our silence, we were becoming something they couldn't imagine. Jinha studied the fleet through the viewing window. Each ship was a work of art, designed by human engineers who had studied every alien weakness. They were fast, deadly, and most importantly, unpredictable. "What are our orders?" he asked. Quan's expression grew cold. "We let them come. We let them enter our system thinking they've already won. Then we show them what 3 centuries of silence bought us." "And if they surrender?" Ginha asked. "They won't," Quan replied. "They're too proud. They'll fight to the end, believing they can win through sheer numbers." Hareen nodded. "Good. We need to send a message to the entire galaxy. Not just about our technology, but about our nature. They need to understand that humans are not the same as other species." "What makes us different?" Jinha asked. Heron said simply, "They gave us 3 centuries to study their weaknesses. They thought isolation would make us weak. Instead, it made us focused." Quan looked out at the fleet, his expression thoughtful. They're about to learn the most important lesson in the galaxy. Never underestimate a species that learns from its mistakes. The command center buzzed with activity as Earth's forces prepared for war. In 2 months, the peacekeeping fleet would arrive expecting to find a quiet, primitive world. Instead, they would find humanity's true nature: patient, brilliant, and absolutely ruthless when threatened. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's silence for 3 centuries. Soon, they would learn what that silence had been hiding, and they would never laugh at humanity again. The peacekeeping fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, like a storm cloud blocking out the stars. 3,000 ships of every size and shape, their hulls gleaming with alien metals and bristling with weapons. They moved in perfect formation, a display of power meant to intimidate any enemy. Admiral Torvin of the Hegemony stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Galactic Justice. He was a veteran of a dozen campaigns, and he had never seen a more impressive fleet. 12 species had contributed ships, creating the largest military force in galactic history. "Scan the system," he ordered his communications officer. "Let's see what the humans have been hiding." "Zolts came back quickly, sir. We're detecting minimal activity. A few orbital platforms around Earth, some mining operations near the asteroid belt. Nothing that could threaten us." Torvin nodded with satisfaction, as expected. 3 centuries of isolation have left them weak and primitive. On the bridge's main screen, Earth appeared as a small blue dot in the distance. Looked peaceful, almost defenseless. The perfect target for a quick and easy conquest. "Send the standard surrender demand," Torvin ordered. "Give them 1 hour to respond." The message was broadcast across all human frequencies. It was simple and direct: surrender now, or face the consequences. The fleet would accept nothing less than complete submission. The hour passed in silence. "No response, sir," reported the communications officer. Torvin smiled coldly. "Then we proceed with the operation. All ships advance to Earth orbit. Show them what happens when they ignore the will of the galaxy." The massive fleet began to move forward, their engines lighting up the darkness like 1,000 suns. They expected to find human ships waiting for them, probably small and crude vessels that would surrender at the first sign of serious opposition. Instead, they found empty space. "Where are their defenses?" Torvin's second in command, a nervous young officer named Celtic. "Probably hiding behind their planet," Torvin replied, a typical coward's tactic. But as the fleet moved deeper into the system, they found no hidden defenses. The orbital platforms around Earth were clearly civilian, designed for communication and weather monitoring. The mining operations were exactly what they appeared to be. There was no sign of a military presence anywhere. "Sir," Celtic said uncertainly, "what if they really have no defenses? What if they're just ... helpless?" Torvin considered this. It would be disappointing, but not surprising. Many primitive species simply gave up when faced with superior technology. Perhaps humans were no different. "Prepare landing forces," he ordered. "We'll occupy their major cities and integrate them into the galactic community. They'll thank us eventually." The order was passed down through the fleet. Thousands of alien soldiers prepared for deployment, expecting to face primitive weapons and disorganized resistance. The conquest of Earth would be remembered as the easiest victory in galactic history. But hidden in the asteroid belt, Captain Jinha watched the alien fleet through his ship's sensors. Around him, 200 human warships waited in perfect silence, their crews ready for battle. "They're taking the bait," he reported to Admiral Kwan. Moving into the inner system, just as predicted. Kwan's voice crackled over the secure channel. "All ships, prepare for Operation Nightfall. Wait for my signal." Jinha looked at his crew. They were young, most of them born after the isolation began. They had trained their entire lives for this moment, studying every alien weakness, learning every tactical advantage humanity could gain. "Remember," Ginha told them, "we're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for the right to exist as equals in this galaxy." On the bridge of the Galactic Justice, Admiral Torvin was growing impatient. "Why haven't they responded to our presence? Are they really so primitive that they don't understand what's happening?" "Maybe they're scared," suggested Celtic, frozen with fear. Torvin shrugged. "It doesn't matter. Begin the occupation. I want troops on the ground within the hour." The first wave of landing craft began to separate from the main fleet, heading toward Earth's major cities. They moved slowly, confidently, like predators approaching helpless prey. That's when Admiral Kwan gave the signal. "Free. Show them what silence bought us." The first thing the aliens noticed was the stars going out. One by one, the points of light around them began to disappear, replaced by the dark shapes of human warships. They seemed to materialize from nothing, their phase shift technology making them invisible until they chose to attack. "Contact," screamed Torvin's sensor officer. Multiple ships all around us. But before Torvin could react, the human ships opened fire. Beams of quantum energy lanced out from the darkness, striking alien vessels with pinpoint accuracy. The first shots were aimed at engines and weapons, crippling rather than destroying. The aliens tried to return fire, but their enemies kept disappearing and reappearing in different locations. It was like fighting ghosts, shadows that could strike from any direction without warning. "How are they doing this?" Torvin demanded. His science officer was frantically working at his console. "Sir, their ships are phasing in and out of normal space. Our sensors can't track them when they shift." Captain Jinha piloted the Defiant Dawn through the chaos, his ship dancing between enemy fire like a leaf in the wind. His crew worked with machine-like precision, each shot carefully aimed to disable rather than destroy, to target their command. "Ship," he ordered. "Time to end this quickly." The Defiant Dawn phased directly above the Galactic Justice, appearing so suddenly that the alien crew had no time to react. Jinha's weapons officer fired once, a single quantum blast that severed the flagship's main engines. The massive ship began to drift, helpless and dead in space. "This is Captain Jinha of the Earth Defense Force," came a voice over the alien communication channels. "Your flagship is disabled. Surrender now, or we will be forced to take more drastic action." Admiral Torvin stared at the human ship hovering. Above him, it was half the size of his flagship, but it had crippled his vessel with a single shot. Around him, the great peacekeeping fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy they couldn't see coming. "How?" he whispered. "How are they doing this?" Dr. Harin's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional. "You wanted to know what we've been doing for 3 centuries, Admiral? We've been learning, we've been adapting, been becoming something you could never imagine. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted only 6 hours. The humans moved through the alien fleet like surgeons, cutting out engines, disabling weapons, crippling command systems. They didn't destroy ships unless they had to. They simply made them helpless. It wasn't cruelty, it was efficiency. Enough." Torvin finally transmitted. "We surrender. Please, no more." The human attack stopped instantly. The darkness around the fleet filled with the shapes of Earth's warships, no longer hiding their presence. They surrounded the remaining alien vessels, like wolves around a wounded deer. "This is Admiral Kwan," came a voice that every alien in the fleet would remember for the rest of their lives. "You came here to judge us, to decide if we were worthy of joining your galaxy. Instead, you have been judged yourselves." Chino watched as the surviving alien ships began to retreat, their crews shocked and broken. They had expected to face primitive weapons and desperate resistance, Instead, they had encountered something that challenged everything they believed about warfare, about technology, about the nature of intelligence itself. "Let them go," Quan ordered. "Let them carry the news back to their worlds. Let them tell the galaxy what they found here." As the alien fleet limped away from Earth, Jinha felt a strange mixture of pride and sadness. Humanity had proven itself in battle, but at what cost? They had been forced to reveal their true nature, to show the galaxy the predators they had become. But perhaps that was necessary. Perhaps the galaxy needed to learn that not all species were the same, that some could adapt and evolve in ways that others could not imagine. The peacekeeping fleet that had arrived to conquer Earth was now fleeing in terror, carrying with them the news that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity was no longer silent, and the stars would never be the same. The news of the Sol System massacre spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, alien leaders watched the recordings in stunned silence. The great peacekeeping fleet, the pride of galactic civilization, had been destroyed in 6 hours by a species they had written off as primitive. Emergency sessions were called on every major world. The Hegemony Council met in closed session for 3 days straight. The Dominion recalled all their fleets to defend their home systems. Even the ancient consortium, rulers of the galaxy's oldest worlds, began to prepare for war. But humanity was already moving. Captain Jinha stood on the bridge of the Defiant Dawn, watching as his strike force approached the Hegemony's primary shipyard. The massive facility hung in space like a metal moon, its surface covered with construction bays and weapon platforms. For 1,000 years, it had built the ships that kept the galaxy in line. Today, it would fall. "Targets locked," reported his weapons officer. "All ships ready for phase assault." Jinha nodded, began the attack. "Remember, we want those new ships intact." The human fleet phased into normal space directly inside the shipyard's defenses. The aliens had been expecting an attack from outside. Their weapons pointed toward deep space. They never imagined that human ships could appear anywhere they wanted. Alarms screamed across the facility as quantum beams sliced through steel and crystal. But the humans weren't trying to destroy the shipyard. They were capturing it. "Boarding parties," Go Jinha ordered. Small human ships latched onto the shipyard's hull like parasites. Teams of soldiers in advanced armor cut through the metal, walls moving with speed and precision that the alien defenders couldn't match. They had trained for this moment, studying every layout, every weakness, every possible resistance. The battle for the shipyard lasted 2 hours. When it was over, humanity had captured the galaxy's most advanced shipbuilding facility, along with 50 brand new alien warships. But more importantly, they had sent another message to the galaxy. Nowhere was safe from human reach. Dr. Heron stood in her new laboratory aboard the captured shipyard, studying the alien technology with fascination. The Hegemony ships were well built, but they were also predictable. Every system followed the same basic patterns that had been used for thousands of years. "Can we adapt their designs?" asked her assistant, a young engineer named Park Hurin. Smiled. "We don't need to adapt them. We need to improve them." She gestured to the alien ship's engine core. "Look at this. They're still using fusion reactors from the Stone Age. You can replace these with quantum cores and triple their power output." Her team worked through the night stripping the alien ships of their original systems and replacing them with human technology. When they were done, the captured vessels would be faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Meanwhile, Admiral Quan sat in his command center, coordinating humanity's next moves. The capture of the shipyard was just the beginning. It plans that would shake the galaxy to its core. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender offers from 17 different species. They want to negotiate terms." Quan shook his head. "Too late for that. They had 3 centuries to negotiate. Now, they'll learn what happens when you underestimate humanity." His next target was the Dominion's military academy, where alien officers had been trained for generations. A single human ship, using advanced stealth technology, infiltrated the academy's defenses and broadcast a message to every cadet. The The message was simple. Your teachers lied to you. They told you that strength comes from numbers and tradition. We are here to show you that strength comes from adaptation and intelligence. The Academy's defenses tried to locate the human ship, but it was like chasing shadows. The vessel would appear long enough to deliver its message, then vanish again. The psychological effect was devastating. Humans could penetrate the galaxy's most secure military facility. What else could they do? But the real shock came when humanity revealed their new communication system. Dr. Haren's quantum entangled. Networks allowed human commanders to coordinate across vast distances instantly. While alien fleets struggled with light-speed communications, human forces moved as one organism. Captain Jinha demonstrated this during the Battle of Rigel Station. His small fleet faced a much larger alien force, but they moved with perfect coordination. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship was, what it was doing, and what it would do next. It's like they're reading each other's minds, reported the alien commander, before his fleet was destroyed. He wasn't wrong. The quantum network allowed human crews to share thoughts and reactions in real time. They fought not as individual ships, but as a single deadly intelligence. The galaxy's great civilizations began to panic. Ancient alliances crumbled as each species blamed the others for the Terra threat. The hegemony accused the Dominion of providing false intelligence about human capabilities. The Dominion claimed the consortium had hidden the true extent of Earth's technological advancement. This is exactly what they want, declared the consortium's first speaker during an emergency session. They're turning us against each other. The damage was already done. Fear had replaced unity. Each species now looked to its own survival, abandoning the cooperation that had kept the galaxy stable for millennia. Humanity exploited this. Weakness ruthlessly, they would attack one species while sending diplomatic messages to another. They would offer trade agreements to worlds that had been enemies for centuries. They would provide advanced technology to rebels fighting against galactic authorities. The galaxy's neat, orderly structure began to collapse. On the world of Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. The great hall that had once been filled with confident voices was now silent, except for worried whispers. It must unite, pleaded the council speaker. If we fight together, we can still defeat them. But nobody was listening. The hegemony representatives were already planning their withdrawal from the council. The Dominion had recalled their ambassadors. Even the ancient consortium was preparing to retreat to their core worlds. They're not just defeating our fleets, observed one council member. They're defeating our entire way of thinking. It was true. Humanity had studied the galaxy's political structure for centuries, learning its weaknesses. They knew that the great civilizations were held together by fear and tradition, not by genuine cooperation. Remove the fear, challenge the tradition, and the whole system would collapse. Dr. Haren watched the political chaos from her laboratory, feeling a mixture of pride and sadness. Humanity had spent 3 centuries learning to be better than their enemies. Now they were proving just how much better they had become. Are we doing the right thing? Asked her assistant Park. Harin considered the question carefully. Galaxy had 3 centuries to treat us as equals. It chose to treat us as inferiors. Now they're learning the consequences of that choice. She gestured to the screens, showing human ships throughout the galaxy. We're not conquerors, Park. We're teachers. We're showing them what they could have been if they had chosen evolution over stagnation. The lesson was harsh, but necessary. The galaxy's great civilizations had grown comfortable with their power. Forgetting that true strength came from the ability to adapt and grow, humanity had never forgotten that lesson. As the galactic order crumbled around them, human ships continued their work. They weren't just fighting a war, they were rewriting the rules of civilization itself. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's silence for 3 centuries. Now they were learning that some silences were more dangerous than any scream. And humanity was just getting started. 1 year after the Sol System massacre, Admiral Kwan stood on the observation deck of the Sovereign Dawn, humanity's flagship. As it entered orbit around Nexus Prime, the once mighty capital of galactic civilization looked different now. The crystal spires that had reached toward the stars were broken and dark. The great space stations that had bustled with trade from 1,000 worlds were empty and cold. The war was over. Not because humanity had conquered every world, but because the galaxy had finally learned to listen. Sir reported his communications. Officer, the remaining council members are requesting permission to board. Quan nodded. Let them come. It's time to discuss the future. The delegation that arrived was much smaller than the old Galactic Council. Only 12 species had survived the collapse with their governments intact. The rest had either been destroyed in the chaos or had retreated to their home worlds, abandoning their dreams of galactic empire. The meeting took place in the Sovereign, Dawn's conference room, a simple space with human furniture and human decorations. The alien delegates sat uncomfortably in chairs designed for human bodies, small reminder of who now held power in the galaxy. "You have won," said the council speaker, the same blue-skinned alien who had laughed at Earth's silence years ago. His forearms shook with age and fear. "What do you want from us?" Quan studied the faces around the table. These were the representatives of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Now they looked like frightened children, waiting to learn their fate. "We want what we always wanted," Quan said simply. "Respect, equality, the right to exist as we choose." "You have that now?" the hegemony representative said quickly. "The Terra Accords grant Earth full sovereignty and recognition as a galactic power." Quan smiled. The Terra Accords had been signed by every surviving government in the galaxy. They acknowledged humanity's right to exist, to trade, to explore, and to defend themselves. Everything that had been denied to Earth for 3 centuries. "The Accords are a good start," Quan agreed, "but they're not enough. The galaxy needs to change. The old ways of thinking, the old systems of power, they're what led us to this war." He gestured to the broken view of Nexus's prime outside the window. "Look what your rigid thinking accomplished. You created a system that couldn't adapt, couldn't grow, couldn't learn. When it met something new, it tried to destroy it instead of understanding it." The consortium representative, an ancient being that looked like living crystal, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "What would you have us do? Rebuild our entire civilization?" "If necessary," Quan replied. "But we're not here to rule you. We're here to help you become something better." He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy as it was now. Human ships moved freely between the stars, but they weren't conquerors. They were teachers, traders, and explorers. They were doing what humanity had always done best, adapting, and helping others adapt. "Dr. Heron has been appointed as the first director of galactic sciences," Quan continued. "Her job is to help your worlds advance beyond the stagnation that nearly destroyed you all." The alien delegates exchanged glances. They had heard about Dr. Heron's work, how she had taken their own technology and improved it beyond recognition. The idea of learning from humans was still difficult for them to accept. "And Captain Jinha now commands the Terran Patrol," Quan added. "His job is to maintain peace and order while the galaxy rebuilds." Peace and order. The words had a different meaning now. The old galactic order had been based on fear and tradition. The new order would be based on cooperation and progress. Dr. Heron entered the conference room, carrying a datapad filled with her latest research. She looked older than her years, worn down by the responsibility of reshaping galactic science. But her eyes still burned with the curiosity that had driven her to surpass alien technology. "The first phase of technological sharing has begun," she reported. 17 worlds have agreed to participate in the advancement program. They'll receive quantum-fold technology in exchange for opening their research facilities to human scientists. The quantum-fold technology was just the beginning. Haren had plans to revolutionize everything from medicine to manufacturing. But she wouldn't simply give the technology away. The galaxy's species would have to earn it by proving they could use it responsibly. "What about the worlds that refuse to participate?" asked the Dominion representative. "They're free to make that choice," Haren replied. "Behind, the galaxy is moving forward with or without them." Captain Jinha's voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim. 3 more species have requested to join the advancement program." Quan nodded. The word was spreading. Species that had been isolated or oppressed under the old system were now seeking out human contact. They wanted to learn, to grow, to become something more than they had been. "How many ships do we have on patrol now?" Quan asked.
500.
Jinha replied, "All crewed by volunteers from dozens of different species. They're not just human ships anymore. They're galactic ships, serving a galactic purpose." That was perhaps the most important change. The new order wasn't just about human dominance. It was about creating a galaxy where all species could thrive, where cooperation replaced competition, where advancement replaced stagnation. "The old galaxy is dead," Quan told the assembled delegates. "You can mourn it if you want, but you can't bring it back. The question now is, what kind of galaxy do you want to help us build?" The council speaker looked out at the ruins of Nexus Prime, then back at Quan. "We want to survive. We want our children to have a future. And then you'll work with us," Quan said. "You'll learn from us. And eventually, you'll teach us things we never imagined." The meeting ended with the signing of the cooperation protocols, agreements that would govern the galaxy's reconstruction. It wasn't surrender or conquest. It was partnership, built on mutual respect and shared goals. As the alien delegates left the ship, Quan remained at the observation window, watching the stars. Dr. Heron and Captain Jinha joined him, the three humans who had helped reshape galactic civilization. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Heron asked. Quan considered the question. "We did what we had to do. They gave us no choice. But now we have to live with the consequences," Jinha added. "We're not just Earth's protectors anymore. We're responsible for the entire galaxy." "Then we'll do what humans have always done," Quan replied. "We'll adapt. We'll learn. We'll become whatever we need to be." The galaxy was quiet now, but it was a different kind of quiet than Earth's 3 centuries of silence. This was the quiet of growth, of change, of species learning to work together instead of against each other. Human ships moved through the stars, no longer as conquerors, but as guardians of a new order. They carried with them the lessons of Earth's silence, that sometimes the greatest strength came from patience, that true power lay in the ability to adapt and evolve, and that the future belonged to those who could learn from their past. The galaxy no longer laughed at humanity. They spoke of Earth with respect, sometimes with awe, always with the understanding that they were dealing with something unprecedented in galactic history. Children of a dozen species learned human names in their schools. They studied human tactics in their military academies. They debated human philosophy in their universities. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive was now the standard by which all others measured themselves. But perhaps the most important change was in humanity itself. They had learned that their greatest strength wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their ability to see potential where others saw only problems, to find solutions where others saw only obstacles, to build bridges where others saw only walls. The war had ended, but humanity's journey was just beginning. Their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as catalysts, pushing the galaxy toward a future that none of its former rulers could have imagined. In the end, the galaxy's greatest mistake hadn't been underestimating humanity's strength. It had been underestimating their capacity to transform weakness into power, silence into strategy, and isolation into innovation. The stars were no longer silent about Earth. They hummed with the sound of progress, of species working together, of a galaxy learning to grow instead of simply endure. And at the center of it all, humanity continued to do what they had always done: adapt, evolve, and reach for something greater than what they were. The silence was broken. The laughter had ended. The future had begun.